Good afternoon, everyone. We have the pleasure today to welcome Ronald Nair from Affluence Magazine. And it is, can you still hear us, Ronald? Are you
Yeah,
still
loud
there?
and clear. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. There was just like you just disappeared from the screen. I'm sorry. So just let's say again, we have the pleasure to welcome Ronald Nair from Affluence Magazine from Cape Town. We know each other for quite a while, and I still remember that first meeting we had at the Mount Nelson Hotel in Cape Town. Today,
Yeah,
it looks
absolutely.
like Cape Town is very, very, very cold. So welcome.
No, thank you very much for having me. Excited about today. Yeah, so let's have some fun. Whatever questions you guys have, let's fire away. I'm excited to be here.
We do not have funny questions. We wanted to dig a little bit deeper about people's story, and I or we would be very much interested. How is your story? Like where you started to become a publisher? Did it actually happen by accident? Was it your dream always? How actually you decided to do a magazine like Affluence, what you are doing right now, which is a magazine for luxury brands. Yeah, just tell us a bit more about that.
So, good question or a good way to start. So we started the publication a couple of years ago. My wife and myself, we both co-founded the magazine. So we've always been, I think fundamentally, we've always been passionate about connecting brands and people, or just connecting people. That's always been I think, our key strength. And after a while, we came across some beautiful locations in the winelands, and we haven't seen it before. And we just told us of like, there must be many people in Cape Town that has never seen. You become a bit of a tourist in your own land, and we just said, what if we could create an opportunity for people to rediscover the beauty of the winelands? So for the first 2 years of the publication, it was just fundamentally highlighting beauty that we saw and making it available to a broader audience. And we decided not to move outside of the winelands. But after the first 2 years, we became a national publication, and then we started a branch in Johannesburg, and we've represented South Africa in other parts of the world. I think you are familiar with some of the trips. So starting the magazine, we had no prior experience in publication, but the experience that we did have is we were. I always say that I'm in the people business. The industry is luxury, so we've very much always been around people, connecting people, and in this opportunity, we can connect people, or in the sense of luxury between consumers and brands, and that's really just been our journey for the last, I'd say, 7 to 8 years now. Yeah.
And you just started with the point to say we started a publication. But how that came in your mind? Actually, this is not something like you decide to buy a new car or something like this.
Yeah.
You is a
Did you
very
see a need for
yeah.
like why did you see a need for like one of the most like interesting luxury publications, now you say in Africa, so like how did you see the need to actually come up with something like that?
So I think we were just trying to communicate to people like us. So I've come out of a what we consider a previously disadvantaged background. So I haven't seen many of the beauty that we have in South Africa then. Now, obviously, years through, I've seen quite a lot. But this is the beauty of Cape Town, I would say, is that there's so much uncharted territory, and in the wine estate and everywhere. So even though you might have two wine estates next to each other or neighboring, they definitely do not have anything. If you stand outside, it doesn't even look like they're close by. So starting the magazine is, prior to the magazine, we did what we consider brand management. So we'd manage brands and where they want to be. So we always had the thing about brand identity, where people are going, and able to set objectives for brands and let them meet it. So in the publication, so starting the publication was a sense to allow other people like ourselves the opportunity. We just thought to ourselves there has definitely have to be a market, because I've been in many conversations where you have people touring or tourists coming in South Africa and going to tourist spots that you've never been because of many reasons. So after a while, you become a tourist in your own land, and that's really been the driving force was how do we kind of close the gap between people and the industry that live in South Africa. So it was never really, it never started out in a sense to be a national publication. It didn't start out to
Okay.
be an international publication, or yeah, the intention was really to localize a publication, to find stories worth telling and telling those stories. And in the process, it kind of grew. It grew tremendously. But I think fundamentally, it's always been ring fenced around people and the opportunity that we could bring. Just the opportunities became more and more. And yeah, it's just been an amazing journey. But to answer the question, we wanted to kind of reintroduce Cape Town or the winelands back to the people in the winelands, or back in the people of Cape Town. And in doing that, we were then doing it in Cape Town, Joburg, Durban, and the other parts, other cities in the country.
That's quite interesting. And you know what just comes to my mind? We just finished a conversation with someone where we discussed how to promote Africa as a destination for people to celebrate weddings, corporate events from people from all over the world, because we see there is a huge how can I say, still lack in certain areas of the world how Africa looks like, you know, that we in Africa can supply luxury, we can provide service, high level of accommodation, service, whatever it is, you know. And there is a misconception, and I think you have done so far a very great job to introduce luxury brands, African brands, particularly South African brands, to different areas in the world. What actually was your, let's say, most challenging area where you said maybe we want to introduce those brands and it wasn't as easy as maybe you have thought about to get to these markets?
So I think the I think because we didn't come from a publication background, we weren't sure of the rules that were there. So we kind of broke every rule in the process, and we kind of virtually started our own category, if you want to call it that, and not so totally out of a sense that not having a lot of experience in the industry, but the experience that we did have was the ability to connect people and see where they are going. And if they can't see where they're going, we'd find opportunities to sketch it out for them. And I think the great thing or the great challenge for us in the beginning was hearing amazing people and their stories and their journeys similar to what you are doing now, and finding out that many of the people we've interviewed and we've chatted with know about each other, but they've never met each other or have never spent personal time together. So that started, I would say, the event side of Affluence. And that the challenge for us at that stage was how do we, because after chatting to somebody, your perception and everything about them changes because there's more information for you to kind of gauge who they are, where they're coming from, and those kind of stuff. And in doing that, we just came across tons of people, funny enough, who all knew about each other, but they never knew each other. So that was our journey or the challenge to create and that's how our first event was created, with a very good friend of mine who you know very well, a late Swanepoel. And we had an event
Yes.
for the winelands, and virtually every one of our clients came. And I think that was the joy for us to see the connection in the winelands and see them starting connecting, because um, we try to not look at a sense of competitiveness, because competition, I think it's healthy, but if we are marketing Africa, then we are brand ambassadors for Africa, marketing Africa to the globe. So that's the common denominator instead of a competitive nature. So
Yeah.
competitive nature would always find a way to undervalue, undermine somebody else to create room and space for yourself. But it's also lingering on a lot of insecurities that you might have. So we started seeing that, let's take the winelands, that they were very happy to work together even though they were doing the same thing. And that really it really structured a lot for us as a publication because I learned from it. Because normally in business, your whole concept is why I am better than somebody else, and you give your 15 or 10 reasons. And generally, clients also would like to know what makes you different. And the only difference I can say is we do what we do, and I'm not sure what anybody else does, and I have a lot of respect
Yeah.
for what they do. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's been a good thing and a learning curve not to, I think, run anybody down, because when I never see things as competition, in a sense that we just see it as a connection coming together to represent Africa in the best way possible to the world. So yeah, so the challenge is bringing people together to see that. And I think after the 7th year now, I think we've done a great job, obviously with the help of the people that's been part of our journey as well.
Yeah, I think it's so true what you are saying. We always let's say, like, when it comes to Africa, we all have to speak with one voice. We should not be divided into different sections and companies and with the competition. This is also like I totally agree. We always say we do not even have competitors. We have colleagues, and they do different
There we
things.
go. There we
Like
go.
exactly what you say. The word competition for me has something uh,
Negative,
negative,
almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
almost negative, and that's why I don't like it, actually. I mean, even though that I know healthy competition is good for the market, like when I have, for example, somebody that is selling flowers, and they bring in different things, it pushes me to the next level, and that is good for the market. That's, I call, actually a healthy competition. But almost like
Absolutely.
the word competitor is a bit very negative. Yeah, so that's why I love very much what you are saying. And like, coming maybe from your journey, which is incredible, and I mean, already 7 years, it's a tough time, particularly in publishing, where everybody in the publishing industry almost goes digital. You still actually went the publishing way for printing, right? And this time, what we are in right now, what has it changed, your work, actually, and what does it actually do for the future of your
Of the
magazine?
magazine.
So, good question. So, what we've done from the inception of the magazine is that we've printed the magazine, and we've always published a digital copy from issue one. So, we've never gone around to market the digital copy. But what has happened after, I think, we probably are now close to 20 issues right now, somewhere between 15 to 20, I can't recall right now. But after your 10th issue, we then realized that our social media footprint and our Google ranking was quite high. So Google ranked us as the top 3 best luxury publications in Africa, and this is where the invites came to go to Dubai, to go to Los Angeles and Paris and those kind of places. So in the digital space, we've had a footprint, but we never market the footprint. And give you an example, if we print 15,000 copies, our digital footprint would reach between 95 to 115,000 people. But we never marketed that. But what we did, just from the offset of Affluence and from the inception, is always load our copies digitally, put it on a website and put it out there. So now in COVID-19, what we now realize is that 7 times the multiple of the people is right in front of their computers, and they've access. So now what we've done with this issue, we didn't print this issue. This issue is coming out in the next 2 weeks. So we didn't print the issue, and it's gone totally digital. So the question is, did we prepare for this? I think we prepared without us realizing. We've just put it out there. So now when people ask, are you just a print or a digital copy? We said we both, but we cannot distribute because the lounges are closed. And the private jets are closed. The private jets, a lot of our friends in ExecuJet and other places, they've used their jets for cargo, and now they're slowly getting into it. So even if we want to print and distribute, where do we distribute? But right
Yeah.
now, and you guys know, we do the talk show on Fridays at 12 o'clock, and look, we've got something like 3,000 followers on Facebook. But I'll show you this thing, which is powerful, just shows you the power of media currently. in our last 4 weeks, we've reached 85,000 people through 3,000 people. So it's not something that you could do as effective in print, because print has limitation, it has boundaries, it has what we consider geography to it. So it's within it a little ring fence. So if the magazine is in the lounge, no one's going to take it out. But a digital copy, people can share it, they can move, and this is what we've done now to conform. Is like, what are the challenges that people are having, and how can we have a conversation and bring them part of it? Because obviously, as a publication we've interviewed some of the finest minds and wealthiest people in our nation and outside of our nation. And the question now in COVID-19 is, how do you use that resource to the advantage of the public? And this is why we've been having, I would say, healthy and controversial chats on the platform to say, listen, we have more that unites us than divides us, but unless we get through the difficult questions and the things, we're never going to be able to see a one South Africa. Because the challenge is South Africa has a very, what we consider a very colorful past, as everybody knows. But the big question is, how do we move forward? And this is why Affluence, I think in the last couple of weeks, decided to take on their journey. And thank God we've not had a lot of controversy with regards to that. But I think people are excited to know that other people is creating a voice for the community out there. Because what we've been getting a lot is, these are the questions that we wanted to ask. So we've always just been on the forefront as a panel to say, listen, what would public ask, and how can we bring South Africa? Because I think Africa's time is now. We've always been a major pioneer for Africa. We believe Africa's time is now. And I think the big challenge for South Africans is, I think for years, Africa didn't know what it's supposed to be. And there was a way that we thought that the world perceived us, and we had to be a certain way. We had to be like Europe, or be like Italy when it comes to fashion, and be like the French when it comes to food. And now we're realizing that the world is asking more questions about Africa, and Africa is now being celebrated. So I think it's an opportunity for Africa's voice to be heard in the market. And I think this is the big thing, because I think there's been a wave where we tried to conform, and now we're finding out that the nations are asking for our voice. And this is what I've seen in my travel as well, that people are major fans of Africa. And the minute we become major fans of Africa as South Africans, and we become proudly South African, we can then move the country forward. Because if you're proud about something, you look after what you're proud about. So yeah, it's been exciting. It's definitely an exciting journey. I think it's Africa's moment, and I think it's just a matter of us all coming together and say, how do we move this thing forward, basically.
I have a before you maybe I have a final question maybe for now. It comes just to my mind when you said at the beginning you wanted to show things that you have maybe not experienced as a young person, or like in the way how a lot of people of maybe color in our country have not yet experienced it. Was it an advantage for you to be a person of color in Africa to create such a magazine, or would you say no, it wasn't, or was it maybe
it's a matter even of character, maybe, and not of color?
Yeah, but in these days, like when Black Lives Matter, we have to talk about things like that, which is like a part of everybody's story in a certain way.
So absolutely good question, and I'd be very honest with you. So it's obviously not a known or norm for people to see people of color either running a luxury publication and free to lead the way for other publications. So I think it is. We've had tons of those questions in the first 5 issues around, does this magazine belong to us? Is it funded by the government? All of those kind of stuff. So there has been a bit of a journey that we had to endure. But I would say there's been a very warm welcome as a result that we've always. So to answer that, I would say it has definitely been a privilege because a lot of the things that we've seen now in the last 7 years would have not been possible had we not had the magazine. So it has definitely has been an advantage for us. And this is a way why we try to pay it forward in a sense to make sure that we can create open dialogue and connect businesses that they may move forward and add value in the industries where we kind of have a footprint in. So it is definitely a new frontier, and I think this is why of the speaking engagements that people want to find out how do people of color break into the market, because I think there's obviously this big debate right now on the economy standing still, which it is because of all the other stuff. And I had
Yeah.
another chat, another platform last week. And it was quite, I don't want to get into the people's names and stuff like that. And we spoke about the economy and like, how do we get the economy going? And the one thing I ask is, so how do we open the full economy? Because the economy is not open to everybody. And that is just a sad reality of things, right? Because we have a vast amount of South Africans that are unemployed. So we have a huge amount of people that's not able to contribute to society, so that we consider them dependents. So the question is, how do we turn dependents into consumers? Because unless we turn them into
Yeah.
consumers, we don't have a middle class or a strong middle class,
Yeah.
or even a strong buying power. So yes, we might be solving one problem by opening the economy right now, which needs to be done. But the bigger question is, how do we open the economy to everybody? And how do we do that? You know, because if we just facilitating grants and those kind of stuff to people, how far can they go? You know, what would be the advantages of that? So, yeah, I think it's definitely an exciting time for us to that we're living in. But I think it's just makes it so powerful because we all have stories and we have a journey that we've been in. And I think if we have these healthy conversations amongst ourselves, it gives us insight, because I think I've learned a lot with the conversations that we've been having in Affluence on the webinars, and finding out that many of our white friends or black friends, whatever, don't understand each other's worlds, and we don't understand we don't know what we don't know, you know,
Yeah.
so we don't have access to it,
Yeah.
and we don't know. So yeah, but now that we're having healthy conversations, the question is, how now do we move forward? And that's the big question for us. Yeah.
Yeah, you said you was very fortunate to have this magazine, but I also think the magazine has a big advantage to have someone like you as a person of color that looks with totally different eyes on luxury in Africa than maybe white people would look like. I think this is a different like approach that you bring to brands as a person of color than maybe somebody that's white. And I think what I saw when I got to know you, you had a different kind of look at things.
Yeah. So I think it's I think what we've realized is that South Africa didn't know, or many people don't know, in a sense. So what luxury has done, it's divided many, those who have and those who don't have. So that's what luxury has done. It's always them and us. So that's been the big thing. So like I mentioned before, what we did, and the only thing, I don't come from a luxury background, so that has not been my advantage. But my disadvantage has become my advantage, in a sense, is that we in the people business, and the industry is luxury. So we've always been in the people
Yeah.
business. We've always been in the hospitable business of having people over, connecting to them without any strong agendas behind it. So when people see, one thing that we've noticed is that in the industry, a lot of people are lonely. They just need someone, and they need a place to belong to, regardless of the amount of money you
Mhm.
have. You want to belong to
Yeah.
something. So what Affluence has created is an ecosystem for people to belong to, regardless of where you're coming from. So if you in an affluence event, or you are part of what we are doing, you are the highest value to us at the time. And the value is not measured amount of wealth that you have, because I don't think that's important. Because when we have meaningful conversations, there's more than we have in common that separates us. Now, what we do
Yes.
is, and this is what I think luxury has done wrong, is they've always just kind of maybe just put out, this guy's worth 2 billion and 500 million, whatever. So what happens? The conversation changes, because now you're trying to speak business, or you're trying to get business, or you're trying to sell business. But if I say absolutely nothing, which we do at our events, we don't say who's who, because I don't think it's important. So what happens in our what we do is we tell people, become friends, business becomes automatic. But if you value
Yes.
friendship, business becomes automatic, because people know when you're trying to sell something. You know when people have other intentions. And what I've seen in the space, that a lot of people in the high net or the ultra high net space are fundamentally lonely because they have a lot of followers and a few friends. So they
Yeah.
don't have people who can speak into their life. They have a lot of people like soundboards telling them what they want to hear. So they never get meaningful conversations. It's like whatever they're
Yeah.
asking, the guys or the female is repeating what they're saying. And I think this is what we call to influence the influencers. We call to hawk with some of them and just where they're at. So that has been important. And if we begin to see that it's good for them to connect with other of our clients, and that's what we've done. And this is how we've grown, just from a point of being genuine and not disingenuine with intentions to behind people's wealth and stuff like that. Because the industry we have, there are people with huge influence, and we've always protected that and protected the relationships that we have and bring in more meaningful relationships. And that is what we've seen grow and add value. And they just add value. And then the question we ask is, are we able to pay it forward? And this is how we bring in other entrepreneurs and other people and move their businesses forward. And this has been, I think,
I think by the end of the
yeah,
can maybe step in, the business is done by people, and
Yeah,
whether you have
exactly.
2 million in the bank or 5, if I like you as a person, I will do business with you. If I don't like you as a person, I will be also much more hesitant to actually put my investment somewhere or do any kind of business that, like, on that type of level. I mean, not when I'm buying some shoes or
absolutely.
something, but like generally it is really about trust and about like a certain vibe that I have and a certain relationship that I want to have, like between two parties. And I think then it doesn't matter if you are at the ultra like high end net worth, or whether you have a small or medium sized company, because it is about the relationship that forms actually this ecosystem also that you have, that you are talking about. Let me maybe
Absolutely.
ask you a question which I would like you to answer, in the sense of, I mean, publishers, they really like to surround themselves with a lot of words, with a lot of, I mean, context, in the sense that stories, and stories sell. I mean, we all know that. You have maybe traveled now also a little bit. Tell me, like, for someone who would ask you, what is South Africa all about? Tell me your story. Like, how are you selling South Africa to people that are like not knowing how South Africa is? Because I know from my perspective, coming from Europe, people ask us like, okay, so are there elephants on the streets? Like, do you have to, I don't know, swim over the river to get your breakfast? Or like there are some a lot of like stereotypes out there, but particular also in the like luxury world. I want people to know, and this is why we are sitting here as well, because we want to be ambassadors for Africa, but for a type of Africa that people that maybe come people that we say, you know what, we have a really like a very high end service level for a lot of things. Have, I mean, infrastructure. We have, I mean, apart from everything that is not working in our country, and we know what it is, but there's a lot of amazing stuff out here that we want people in the world to know. So what is it from your perspective? Like, if someone would ask you from outside, tell me, what is your South Africa like? What would you tell them?
I think South Africa is definitely emerging, and the nice part of South Africa is we can definitely compete with possibly anything in the world. I've had the opportunity to travel to Hollywood, to Los Angeles, to Paris, and wherever, and I've never come back with a sense of, wow, we've got so much catching up to do. I've never had that sense. What the only thing that I think, so South Africa can add a lot of value. The other thing is, I don't think we forget how beautiful South Africa is. We forget how beautiful Cape Town is. If you go to Cape Town, you go to one, like I had the opportunity to go to the house of Remy Martin in Cognac, and I spent a few days in Cognac, and it felt to me like I was in Franschhoek. So what does South Africa have? I think we have probably one of the world's beauty in what in on the tip of, let's say, take South Africa for example. We have so much diverse beauty. If you look at KZN, look at the tropical weather. If you look at Cape Town itself, you have so many different regions over here that's so beautiful.
And the
So
God, not to forget the God mood. Please don't
Yes.
forget.
one of my favorites. So that's that I go there every single year. So that's by far my most
I
favorite
know.
spot to be. So the question you ask yourself, if someone would get in their car, a tourist for the first time, and drive from the waterfront to the garden route, I think they sold. And a good friend of mine who's a American, from New York. He just came here to study at UCT, did an in-service, and it's been 20 plus years and he's never left. So he just said, I've
Wow.
never seen something that's beautiful. So I think we have so much beauty, but the big thing is, and I think the world's come around that fact that, and I think the World Cup has played a big role for the, let's say, the ignorance
Mm.
around elephants and those kind of stuff. So they really helped, and I think Nelson Mandela as well. So the world has become a bit
Yeah.
smaller, and but there are a lot of people in the first world countries that maybe misunderstand or misinstrued what Africa looks like, because Africa is not a country; it's a continent. Because people think Africa is a country and we all live in
Yes.
Africa.
Yeah.
So it's a
This
continent.
is
You're right.
yeah.
So that's the big challenge. But I think I think by far it's been a very easy thing to sell. And wherever I've traveled, and you just say that I'm from South Africa, everybody says my dream is to be in South Africa. So I think the big thing
Yep.
outside of selling South Africa, I think selling South Africa to yourself is the big challenge. Do we see the beauty? Do we still see the mountain? Do we still see the garden route? Are we still able to see it? Because that's the challenge that I think we have. A lot of if you look at the
But
Americans,
I
they
think
plowed.
when I
Yeah,
can just step in here for a second, I'm sorry maybe to interrupt you, but
no
I think
problem.
I need to say this right now. What you say
Sure.
is very important,
Like,
but the view that you've got, you only got because you had the possibility to travel. When you see something else, which might be also beautiful, but coming home, then the beauty at home is showing you how beautiful it actually is, and not
absolutely.
just to see that the grass maybe is greener on the other side. I think this is something very important. That's why we always say people need to travel to appreciate what they have at home.
Absolutely. Look, a couple of years, 2, 3 years back, I was at your house, and it's absolutely beautiful. Just the drive over there. So every year we know we go to Mossel Bay, we go to George, and I'm not going to disclose where you live if you don't, but I mean it's absolutely breathtaking. So the thing is, where do you get all of those things in one country?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
question is, where do you get it? So the thing is, it's very easy, and it's been such a pleasure to sell Africa to the world, because the thing is, Africa is what we consider uncharted territory. So people's, let's say, perception of a rural environment where there's no roads and it's underdeveloped, that has gone away. But now it's like I'll never forget. I was sitting in Paris, at Le Bristol's, one of the best hotels in France,
Yeah.
and I was sitting with another guy, and he was asking about South Africa because we had a common friend over there, and then he introduced me to them, and he asked where you from, and I said South Africa. So he said, "No, how is South Africa though?" So I was
Yeah.
telling him about how beautiful it is, and I just came from America, and I was in Hollywood, and I found a lot of the architecture not consistent, because I found you had a nice house and it's normal houses, then you had this big house, but like in Camsby you would just have beautiful houses, or in Saxon and those kind of stuff. So I just said I felt a lot of the architecture wasn't consistent, but it felt like America was a very good marketing company and they market themselves well to the world. So
Yeah.
and then he said,
Yeah.
what does South Africa look like? And I started showing him hotels like the Saxon and various other places in South Africa, and the houses, and he said, well, I never knew it was this beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we just have and when he converted what it would cost him to live in Camps Bay, he just said, well, this would be a dream. I'd never be able to buy anything like this in America
Yeah.
or France at this fraction of the
Yeah.
price. But I just
Yeah.
think we have so much beauty, but I think beauty gets underplayed or undermined based on the politics and all the other stuff. We're not able to see the beauty anymore. So the question
Yeah.
is, for us to be able to promote South Africa, you can never sell something that you're not sold to. And I think as being previously disadvantaged and seeing the beauty of our country, and I would say the beauty of our people as well. Because one thing about South Africans, they are hospitable. South Africans are home people. So in any country, you're going to get the marginalized that's radical in either way you go. But I think if you can, we need to get back to that place that we can see the beauty. I have a lot of talks at universities, and this is what I say to them at UCT, because it's so close to the mountain. I said, if you do not see the mountain anymore, that means that you sometimes become so familiar with something we don't see the beauty. So just sometimes you just step back and just breathe it all in, because it could have looked so much different.
Yeah.
So I think South
Yeah.
Africa itself speaks for itself, and it's really been, I think, one of the hidden gems, and by far, because you have all the beauty we spoke about, then you can have the big five. You have all of this. We don't have
Yeah.
natural disasters. So there's so much pros right now. We have some of the best wedding venues. You guys know, to do amazing weddings as well.
Yeah.
You have some of the best at a fraction of the price. So definitely a location, a wedding destination, and definitely a holiday destination for many. So yeah, we're proudly African. Must be honest, we're definitely proudly
Yeah.
African.
Yeah,
That's
no, we
amazing.
want actually exactly what you say. We want to put Africa in particularly for events on the map of the world, because we just spoke to people like with our international connections that we have. Mexico, Bali, Indonesia, Mauritius, all of these countries have been possible to put themselves on the map for events, for weddings, and for different kind of events. And when we've been, like, I think it was 2 years ago, when we've been co-host for an American magazine for Brides of Color here in Cape Town for their event, we realized something that I never ever thought is actually possible, that all those attendees have been people of color with their
Yeah,
roots here in Africa. And they have never been in Africa before. That was the
absolutely.
first time ever they have been here. That was even a discussion at home with some of them. They told us, the family said, "Are you really want to go to Africa?" It was something like a dangerous journey,
Adventure, yes.
adventure. And
Yeah,
they
yeah,
said they have not even thought about like how much beautiful and how much advanced it is. Like what you said, when you showed like pictures from like Cape Town or from Johannesburg or whatever, they said they had no clue about that. And this is what shocked us at the time. And so that's why we had the idea to say there is like a blank canvas that we still have to fill
absolutely,
with color, you know. And I
absolutely.
think that everyone that we can take on our journey, and maybe I come back to you a little
Yeah.
bit later in the year, because
Sure.
I would love to take you on this journey with us, and you are a wonderful would be a wonderful ambassador for that.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is what we do all the time, and we're extremely passionate about Africa, African brands, African stories. And I think it's, if you look at Black Panther, it was written on an African narrative. And if you really think about it, Black Panther had it wasn't it was written in a way that they didn't realize it would succeed the way it did. If you think about it, because the next movie, Avengers, Black Panther, the main actor, was made in the same year, but he dies in that movie. But they had no idea that it would break box office the way they did, and brought in 2 billion. But if you think about it, and this is the talk I did at UCT, and I said what we need to be is proudly African. And the question is, what is proudly African? Is it only black South Africans? Is it only Indian South Africans? Is it white South? And the question and the answer is all of us. We need to just proudly connect
Yeah.
together, and that is how we move forward. So,
Yes.
does
Because we
show
are a
that
rainbow nation.
absolutely, absolutely. So when we work together and we move forward, then we can effectively tell African stories and stories that matter. And not only we can begin to just swap our stories with what's happening out in the world. So I think there's just so much happening in South Africa and Africa at large that makes us proud and makes us keep getting up and doing what we're doing.
Hmm. And I think, I mean, the only real way, I think, for people to connect is, and this is maybe also the success of your story, is to connect to stories, people's stories, they want to know, how did you get there? Like, how did you get from maybe like this advantaged position to like where you are right now in the
Yeah,
African like environment? Like, how did you do it? How, like, what shaped you? Who helped you? And I think that then also breaks barriers also from outside, because once people have just one point of contact, everything makes it much more easier, so it is
yeah,
like as if I'm traveling and I have this idea to go, and like the first thing is like I'm going to ask a friend if he has been there already, or what recommendations like he has
absolutely.
for me for this particular place. And I think it's the same thing, like once you actually read about someone who has like a footprint somewhere, it makes it much more easier from an outside perspective to relate, and to also not see like big barriers, because I mean the truth of the matter is, and not only in South Africa but as like on an African continent, there is still a lot of stereotypes like around that maybe like are half true, or maybe that we also like want to not push forward. I mean, there's crime, there's poverty, there's corruption, there is a lot of those things still on our continent which are prevailing, and much more than maybe somewhere else. But this is not just what Africa is all about. It is so much more. It has so much more color. It has so much more variety. And I think it's
and possibilities. I mean, look at our story.
options.
We
Yes.
always say our story is unique, and it could happen because we are in Africa, and we had opportunities that maybe in America or in Europe would not be the same way
Absolutely.
as
Yeah, that's
we would
powerful.
have happen here. I think this is what we are grateful and thankful for, and I think a lot of people need to understand Africa has challenges, but also has so much to offer.
So many
Definitely.
Yeah.
opportunities there.
Yeah, definitely. A
Um,
lot of possibilities. Yeah.
yeah. When you look now, I mean, in terms of where Affluence Magazine is going, I mean, you explained that. I mean, right now the where you are is you are publishing online, which obviously you have done before, but comes now to an advantage because you just did it on the side, and
Yeah.
now it's like, I guess the focus is 100% right now on that, because
Yeah.
that is, I mean, as you said before, and as we all know, people are at home. The only thing that they do is they switch on the TV or they are on the internet. And when they are on the internet, this is all the context, all the things that they consume 24/7. So,
Yeah.
like going from here, and maybe also in terms of the type of stories that you are telling, will it be different? Like, what has this time right now that you are facing and that we are all facing has done to like the Affluence Magazine? Or will, or do you say, you know what, we've always told stories, we've always like focused on like the human being and not just maybe the brands, but obviously try to combine it in the sense to make it just much more digestible for people to understand or to relate to? So what is the way for Affluence Magazine from this time of the pandemic, or what you would wish maybe that would happen for the magazine?
So currently, as you guys do know, that what we have done, which has been a big springboard for Affluence, is having a talk show that we have every Friday. So okay, the last 3 Fridays we didn't have, or last 2 Fridays we didn't have, because we've actually interviewed a couple of production companies in Hollywood. So I think Affluence has kind of, I would say, trailblazed in that opportunity, because in the last 4 weeks, like I said, we've reached probably 85,000 people on
I
one
watched
platform.
some of your stories. I
Yeah,
watched
no,
them.
I know,
Yeah,
I know. I've seen you.
included.
You're
We're
definitely been
included
there.
in the numbers.
No, and
Yeah.
this is the thing. It's all we're doing is what we've always been doing, is having a platform that gives everybody a voice. And if we think the voice must only be for one person or one people group, then obviously it doesn't help anybody, because we're just then tilting it to the one side again. So I think so what Affluence has done in this time is recalibrate, but what we've done is like look at how can we add value to society. And in doing that, this is where the talk show has come. And then I've just finished a book that I just wrote called God's Code for Business. And one of the guys that I chatted who was on my show interviewed me on his platform, and I do a weekly chat on his platform. So we've been rather busy on various platforms. I did a talk 2 days ago. It was in Netherlands and stuff like that. So I think we are constantly busy, but the thing is trying to be. I think it never came out of a sense of trying to be innovative. It just came out of a sense of, listen, we have so many people that we know that have solutions to society that could possibly help them moving their business forward. And because the big thing now is, how do you fail forward? How do you use COVID-19 to your advantage? Because one thing COVID-19 says is that they're focusing on essential business services. Now, every one of us thought that our business was an essential service to our clients. So now when COVID-19 says, no, you're not an essential service, essential service looks like that. So the thing in your mind is begin to repackage. How do we recalibrate? How do we repurpose our brands now to become an essential service? Do we change? Do we alter what we do? So there has been a few adjustments that a lot of brands had to undergo, especially I think the events industry. And this is why we've obviously had good friends of ours who you guys know are late and those kind of things to find out, how do you use this to your advantage? Is it an advantage point? So I think for the entrepreneurs and for the business people or the business community out there, we want to be a voice out there to say, listen, you in business because you're an entrepreneur. Before you had any service, the entrepreneurial spirit is moving and going around these obstacles. So how do we as a society move around COVID-19 if there is a thing like that? And this is where we bring in healthy dialogue. How do we do a hard reset to our educational system? How do we change the way the economy is run? So and these are the next chats that we're having with Parliament and various other people, which started with this, as you guys know, a simple chat on Facebook, from Zoom to Facebook, and it's now turned where government is starting to get involved. So the bigger thing is, how do we move the country forward? So yes, we're still on the African tip, but I think it's more localized to our people now, and I think that really excites us. And it gives a sense of humanity back to Affluence to say, listen, we are making it different. And what I've always said, I've never said that I have all the answers, and I don't. But together we can figure it out. So together with you guys, we can figure out what value you can bring to the table. But we also together we can figure out, okay, we can actually get this thing done. We have so much value in South Africa. How do we move forward? And this is really what we've just created, a blank canvas, and so listen, add your value where you think it's valuable, and with the fact that we're helping people move forward.
And this is interesting what you say, and it just comes to my mind while you were talking. And I mean, like, people ask us always when we talk to clients, like, I mean, we have the two businesses, the flower trade, the import export,
Yes,
as well as the event company. For the events at the moment, there is a standstill, like as almost in any other event business. But for the flower trade, people ask us, like, how you are doing, and when there is no events. Obviously there is a huge like interruption of business,
sure.
because the flower industry is so much related in South Africa to the event industry, also opposite to maybe Europe, where you have lots of little flower shops, like those little flower shops also feed the flower industry to move on,
Yeah.
which we do not have here in South Africa. But sorry, but honestly, saying,
I think we lost him, but maybe he will. Just come back. Continue.
Maybe just say the Africa has actually given us the opportunity to move on, because we've got requests from African countries, from florists or event planners. They they needed flowers because they have different levels of lockdown. So there is events in certain
going on.
In certain stages going on. I think this is showing that we all in Africa can actually make it together. We lost you for a second.
Are you there? Yeah.
I just said that, like, we experienced the last couple of weeks that Africa actually has saved in a certain way our business in these days and let us move on, because we've got flower requests. We export flowers into other African countries by selling flowers from South African farms. So this
Wow.
is something what has come along a little bit unexpected right now for us. But I must honestly say, right in time. But also, it shows that the foundation that we have led out the last couple of years to talk to other people in Africa, not see only our business here in
There we
South
go.
Africa.
Not like isolated.
Yeah, not isolated.
Yeah.
This is paying off now, and let us move on. We had huge shipments actually to Congo, to other African countries, where we still have different stages of lockdown, where other events are still possible. So that came quite unexpected to us, but that shows that we all can make it together. This is what just came to my mind when you said that we all can make it together, you know?
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that. And I think that's what I'm referring to is the entrepreneurial spirit is because we had one section with a Q&A and people gave their businesses and they said, I remember the restaurant business was quite a good chat. And so they asked, my restaurant is suffering, what do I do? And in the live conversation, we had 3 entrepreneurs, which I was one. And then we just took the business. We said, okay, simple part is, I know the business that called in. And I said, well, you have a strong footprint on social media. They said, yes. You've been very good to your clients. I've been one of the clients. They said, yes. You make amazing food. They said, yes. So I said, now, why don't you make prepared meals that you get delivered to the people's houses? You know all the clients. You cannot wait for them to come to you. Go to them. So I said, what stops you of just making prepared meals? They know your food. They've been happy with your food. Your place has been fully booked most times. So, and you know exactly where the clients are. So, and they're very active on their social media. So I said, use that to your advantage. Stop looking at what you don't have. Look at what you do have. You know, so that's why I think what's important for businesses are strategic relationships. Let's build strategic relationships. You know, let's start building relationships. And in moments like this is where, like you are saying, unforeseen, the flower business is now taking shape. You know, now it's like, so I think sometimes let's begin to recalibrate. Let's change our focus slightly a bit, because you might have more value than you realize. You have a client base that you've worked with. You have trusted people who trust you. So do you sell a different product in this time? Maybe you could chop or change things, but until your industry kicks back in together, because you have a client base that trusts you. They've been working with you. And I've seen some businesses do that. And I've seen a lot of businesses now have a bit of a financial upturn instead of just sitting and like, I'm waiting for the president, because you might just be waiting and have no business while waiting, you know?
Yeah, I think like this is maybe also important for people who listen. And I mean, we know that I mean, we can talk about opportunities, and we can talk about like the things that we thrive on, which is obviously success. But in this time right now, it's hard. You know, I think it's hard for every single business owner out there. But I also think that a lot of the stuff that you are thinking about is stuff that is unnecessary, and it takes a lot of energy away from the things that you can actually do. I think a lot of people are also now more than ever afraid of failure. And this is the exactly wrong time to be afraid of failure, because what can happen? We are already in the worst situation that we are in.
Exactly.
And there is no more that can go wrong. And I think that is something that people really need to understand, that like failure just happens in your mind. It's not something that is tangible. Like you have to really try out things, get out of your comfort zone, and just be creative. And I also know that being creative for a lot of people that have a lot of financial pressure, that have a lot of maybe emotional pressure, that have a lot of different responsibilities, is not easy. But I also think that the worst times that people are in will bring out the best ideas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that is just something that that people should maybe like take away from this as an encouragement as well, to not just dwell on like how good maybe things are, because I do believe that for a lot of people the past was very, very good to them, specifically in this part of the world, specifically like the type of businesses that we have been dealing with. So now is the time, if you cannot evolve and if you cannot make a change, then you are not in the right spot, because we are very comfortable always like to say, you know what, like never change a running system. But how long does it just like a system run? You need to make moves. You need to like evolve. And I think right now it's evolve or die. As hard as it sounds, and there will be companies that will go out of business, but there will also be companies that will come out of this that will just like thrive on the situation that was given to them.
Absolutely. Look, I couldn't say it better than you just said it now. I think it's absolutely amazing. So in these dark times, there could be amazing things coming out of it. So yeah, so I think I'll encourage people, just get back to the drawing board. Find out what it is that drives you, and if you something is called it's called temporal adjustments. Temporal adjustments is not permanent, but sometimes we don't want to adapt. So let's adapt. And in adapting to the environment, you could actually use it to your advantage. And there are many ways to do that. But I think once you sit down and stop looking at the negativity, you would actually begin to see opportunity. And in doing that, I've seen many businesses turn their things around. They've seen more opportunities. They've went into the medical side of supplying demand, and they've tried a few things. And I've seen guys fail, but I've seen many of them succeed as a result that they started just applying themselves. So I think it's definitely testing times. But the thing is, I think, like you said, in this dark time, great opportunity can definitely present itself if we go out looking for it.
Wonderful. Like, I have also another question. You are not only publishing your magazine, you also have written a book, right?
Yes, I actually finished the book today. No, I finished it 2 days ago. Yeah,
Am I
so I've
not
just
allowed
finished
to
the book.
talk about? Or
No, you can
sorry.
absolutely speak about it. There's actually no secret about it. So actually, I have a talk show with Vusithi Mbakwayo every single week about my book. So there is a series that I'm doing on the book. So a lot of people know about it. So there's no secret. And I'll be delighted to speak about it though.
Yeah, tell us like about your book, and maybe about the idea like behind, or what message is it, what you want to spread.
So crazy part of the book. The book was kind of completed in COVID-19, so that's one of the opportunities that I would never have, because I travel a lot. And I think after the talk show, speaking about two of my chapters, it started reaching, I think it reached close to 125,000 people thus far. And there's been a lot of pressure on me now to get the book done, which I've done. So what is the book about? Yeah, it's like I couldn't keep up with the inbox requests, because I kind of felt, how it is in business, and you feel like, is the book not done? Is it not done? And I kind of felt like I wasn't honoring the clients, and eventually got the book done, and which I
This is
wouldn't.
how it happened in sale. You sell something which is not finished, but then you are surprised that it sells, so you have to hurry up to make the product ready.
Exactly. So the book is called God's Code to Business, which has been a great driving force for us. And the question we started asking is, what is God's code to business? And that's the question I asked myself, because is it just hands down capitalism? Is it socialism? What does it look like? What does it look like when you so I started studying the Bible a lot with regards to that, and asking myself, simple question is, what is God's code to business, if there is a code? And how does it include everybody, if we can include everybody? And in studying that, there was a scripture in Genesis that said that there's a river that flowed out of Eden and became 4 riverheads, which many people use as multiple streams of income. And the question we then focus is, what is a river? Why is a river important? And then we break into the 4 riverheads and those kind of stuff, and then look at architecture, archetypes in the Bible that represents, because you see what a river does is, a river has a few components to it. The river starts with a source. So the beginning of a river is called its source. And a river, so the longest river in the world is actually Amazon. It has 1,000 tributaries. Now, a tributary is another river that pays tribute or honor to another river, and they flow into Amazon, making it the longest river. So even in the conversation right now is, so what we lack in society is honor. So because they honor Amazon, it become the longest river in the world, and it goes through multiple countries. And then you have the Nile that only has two tributaries. And the question we started working with that is, sometimes in life you have mass people around you, but some versions of your life you just need solid strategic relationships with you. There might not be many people, but they few people, but they strong numbers, so in the God's code for business, we kind of look at how to unlock business the way God is intended. Because if everything was created in Eden, outside of Eden would be a secondary plan. And then we look like, what was God's plan when he said, because the Bible says that God spoke everything into existence, right? But then he said he planted a garden. So the question is, he could have spoke that garden into existence as well. Why did he plant it? And if he planted, there must be significance to it. And this is why and then I studied the garden, I studied the meaning, I studied the 4 rivers, what rivers mean, what these rivers actually meant. And it's absolutely been revolutionizing my mind beyond measure. And this is really where the talk show has come about, because I've just went on the talk show once, spoke about the book, about 3 chapters, and they came back and said, please, can you just do a series on it? So I think it's definitely something we need right now, because what we have is a river. What a river does is, before a river goes, so a river flows at its fastest in the middle, which is the heart, which is called a channel, and the channel allows trade. So this is how ships and stuff can go across and create trade. And this is the depth, or the middle part, which becomes your heart. So the depth of your heart will allow trade for you. And the river gives birth to something before it ends. So the end of the river is called a river mouth. But before the river mouth, you have something called a river delta. What it actually means, a river picks up sediment and a lot of debris. And it doesn't move fast at the end anymore. It moves at its slowest, but it gives birth to a river delta. What that means, like the Okavango Delta and all these deltas. So a river provides life for other people more than it provides life for itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the river is important. So what the river does, it provides direction, it provides correction, and it also gives protection. So a river represents life. So we've studied the beginning of river all the way through. And when 2 rivers join, it's called a confluence. And the thing is, so there's so much that we've studied on rivers and biblical views to business. What does it mean in business? Where did business come from? Where did the ideology of business come from? And it's really just been revolutionary to us, to be honest with you. So I've learned a lot in the process of writing the book, because I didn't write out of my experience. I wrote as I was studying, if it makes any sense, though.
Okay.
That's maybe also a complete different approach, and it's like interesting metaphors, obviously. So tell people, like first of all, like when they maybe want to like listen to your chats, like where can they like listen it, and how can they maybe also, if they are a brand out there, or if they want to be part of the Affluence ecosystem, how can they reach you?
So I think the simplest part for me is just Facebook / Ronald Nair. I think it's Ronald Nair 7, but just try Ronald Nair, you'll see my photo, and that would be me.
Yes.
On Instagram, it's @Ronald Nair. So my Instagram I use a lot for our book, more than I use for Affluence, because it's my personal account. So there I share my personal journey, mentorship. So I've got a lot of requests for mentorship on tons of people as a result of the book and the talking shows that I've been involved in. I have a talking show with one of our top speakers named Vushite Bakwayo, which happens Tuesdays. And I think he's got something like 310,000 followers over there. So it's quite an audience. So you can go to that. We'll probably do it next week, Tuesday again. But just watch the Instagram, because sometimes it changes if I'm busy or he's busy on the day. And then, so we have we would go into something called a monthly mentorship, where we look at certain brands and businesses. Now, my area of expertise now after these years is strategically placing brands in high visibility in the sense of luxury to their clients and what that looks like. So from Affluence Magazine, if everybody want to be a part of it, Affluence got a simple concept. You must be able to do long-term more than short-term, meaning that you're part of an ecosystem where it's relationship-based. and business become automatic. It's because many times people think they'll just come into Affluence, get a database, and run off. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work like that. You add value, and that value just pays it forward, basically. So yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we would be happy to add value at anything that you would need from us. No, no matter whenever you need something, what we can support, we would be very happy. I will forever look at rivers in a different way after you explained that to me right now. So whenever I see a river, I will actually remember your book.
Yeah, so it's coming out next week. But watch social media. I've just kind of just gave it a condensed version of it, but it's really been impactful on the rivers. But I think we're all called to be rivers, because if you look at the Nile, 90% of the people on the Nile
Yeah.
live right next to the river as a result of source of drinking water and agriculture. So river really represents life. So I think we're all called to be rivers. The only challenge is not all of us give birth to deltas, and the deltas is what feeds people around us. So
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
an amazing analogy, but I
Thank
think
you
it's
so
it's yeah, pleasure's all mine. Thank you for the opportunity,
That is
and yeah,
Sure.
excited.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time,
Thanks.
for your insights, also like a little bit from a different perspective. I think that is also what a lot of people need right now. Just to like look at their life and maybe what is happening around the world from a different angle. So all the very best for you,
For your family.
yeah, for your family. Stay healthy. I think that is after all still the most important thing. Much success in your business, and I think, I mean, what I have seen also, and I really want like to direct people to follow also your stories and your chats. It's very insightful, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I
All
totally
the very
appreciate it.
best.
Thanks a
Take
million.
care. Thank
Lots
you.
of love,
Bye.
eh?
Bye bye.
Goodbye.